Bloodied Master, Lord of light and eternity, perfect Jesus, you the one who received the thorns on the forehead and nails in your obedient hands, you the Lord of crucifixion and resurrection, who transformed the cross into a crown and the wounds of silence into sunrise, and your blameless damnation into song. Give us your drive, give us the strength, so that at the time of the bloody crucifixion, we can receive the nails and the force. Just like you, in your great loneliness, put your smile on the forehead of our country and teach the sentenced people about the bitter prayer from your moments up on the cross. And tell the dead people of clay to not curse, and under the clover, under the stumps, under the rye, to wait for your steps across the country, and the sign of the mountains that will light up the coat of arms, and tell the dead under the holy shrine that the morning will soon come, when the people will get the life again, forgiven for the dead in the graves. Just like Michelangelo managed to create wonderful creations out of stone, the same way Radu Gir managed to create crystals out of his lyrics. I boiled so much in the ruthless, long turmoil that never have I thought I could forgive, and that today I forgive while smiling. Today, I wear the great flame of life like a medallion around my neck. And I'm proud that in the measles and lava, I knew how to boil so long. I really don't get how the clay, melted in asphalt and chaos, can see the unseen with eyes that cannot see today. And if I can forgive while smiling, it's because I didn't come out of captivity crawling, but waving in new armor. The first jail was in Aiud, and I believe it was Christmas, and I was under medical care for an issue with digestion. And Radu Gir was in the neighboring room. I first saw him through a hole that we made. I don't remember how. He was physically a weak man, blonde, red-haired, thin man, only skin and bones, rather a Semitic-looking figure. After a few days, I managed to use their toilet. We hugged. That's how we all greeted each other. And he gave me some bread that I took back to my colleagues. They, at the time, suffered from tuberculosis and had a special diet. They couldn't eat. He was vomiting blood at the time. And we couldn't wait for the gift. And that's how I met Radu Gir. I first met him through his lyrics, of course, that were food for soul to me. Without them, I believe we would have died very fast, because death first comes from here. We would receive lyrics through Morse code, and through the exchanges they would make with us in the rooms, they would change the people in the rooms depending on what they would want to find out from us. Because amongst us, we had snitches. Colleagues of mine, I recently discovered statements signed by unknown people. These are fictional names, of course. I have suspicions about who they might be, but no certainty. So they would move us around, but they wouldn't keep us in the same room for too long so you don't create friendships. And of course, to avoid thoughts of escape or who knows what, conspiracy against communism and the regime. And therefore, such switches helped us in getting new lyrics. Plus, Morse code was going all day and night until Satan found a way to create obstacles for us. Practically, the Morse code would only go on one pipe that would supply all cells. If you were tapping on cell X, for example, you could hear it in cell Y on the other side of the jail. So eventually, in the hallways, they created a heating system with these automatic knockers that would interfere with our Morse code. But of course, we found other means of communication. Behind the bars, we had shutters so that we could not see beyond, but we discovered a very small opening, like the tip of a pin, and we were the only ones who knew, and of course the other respective cells across, we would communicate with the ones directly across, and when we were sending messages, others were as well, and messages, of course, would get crossed. So we found other ways. It was difficult, but we found other ways to communicate. Radu Gir, during the holidays, on Christmas, on Easter, he had an amazing impact because he kept us aware and present. He gave us some meaning to our pain. We knew why we were there. Even if initially, by mistake, they threw you in there. Radu Gir gave us purpose to our pain. This is how I felt, and Radu Gir was a foundational stone. The poem for which Radu Gir was sentenced to death and held in the death chamber for 1 year. Later, of course, they changed his sentence. Stand up, Gheorghe, stand up, Ioane. Not for a piece of bread, not for shelters, not for land, but for tomorrow filled with freedom. Stand up, Gheorghe, stand up, Ioane, so that you place your warm love upon doorsteps, porches, doors, icons, on everything that offers future laughter. Stand up, Gheorghe, stand up, Ioane, so that you sip the freedom from the eternal cups and sink it into the sky in waters and take her flowers and shake them over you. Stand up, Gheorghe, stand up, Ioane. Stand up, Gheorghe, using those chains and ropes. Stand up, Ioane, using those holy bones. Get up for the light after the storm. Stand up, Gheorghe, stand up, Ioane. Neculai Popa is a Romanian who suffered 14 years in prison because he opposed the communist regime in Romania, established in March 1945 by the intervention of the Soviet army, following the Agreement of Yalta of October 1944. He had not turned 20 years old when he was arrested as a result of a failed resistance mission in the west region of the country. During the entire detention period, he was incarcerated in Uranis, Jilava, Aiud, Gherla, and Dej. The memory of the endured suffering during the confinement years, along with the weakness of the human nature, dealing with the horrible experiments of the totalitarian system, are bitter for Neculai Popa. But the jail also made him aware of human strength to defeat the pain through spirit. Do you know what was here? This was the cell of Father Calciu, where 4 passed away out of 7. Only 3 survived. Within one cell were 6 or 7 cells. soap that was given to us to wash. I have found 3 pieces so far. I remember that Iorgu Vântu Trene would stand here leaning against the wall, the son of former liberal minister, and I would talk to him. I was new to prison and suffering, but I would gather information and he would advise me. The beginning of August 1951, when I was, I believe, in Uranus, not sure where they investigated me. I had glasses and a blanket or coat over my head. I was brought through Bucharest in a car to Jilava. What impressed me, and I remember well, was the marquee as you enter the 13th fort. At that time it was written, "The human is the most precious capital." Karl Marx. A pure stupidity because we were anything but precious, since they were torturing us like Christ. In the beginning, they put me in room 912, room 10. 9 is the room that we passed by. It's in the front. I think there were about 60 people in the room at the time altogether. I understood there were rooms where even 90 people were in the same capacity. There were bunks back then, shelves where we slept like cucumbers. I would sleep on the floor because I was young and would offer the higher levels to the older people who were not well. In the summertime, it was great, but then November, December, January came around, and I was still on the floor having the same mat to put under or to cover myself with. There was no fire, no heat, no wood, nothing. There was no air. Especially in the summer. In August, we would be in underwear or sometimes in the nude, and I've been in the nude as well. Tell us something about the way you managed to pray while in detention. First of all, I want you to know that in prison, there was no difference between the priests that were Catholic, Greek Catholic, or Orthodox. Wherever there were priests, they were all serving, making communions, and listening to confessions. There was no censorship. You were never asked whether you were Greek, Catholic, or Orthodox in order to receive communion with a priest. If there was a priest, if there was no priest, for example, I was making Holy Communion for myself. As it was in Gherla, for example, at a given sign, 1 minute after the lights were off, all the prisoners, or the ones willing to confess, they would confess internally, and Bishop Todea would grant dispensation. The following day, the same, whoever repented, everything depended on our conscience. There was no other way to do it. They would receive the Holy Communion. For example, myself and the Boila brothers, Manu's nephew, with whom I was in Gherla, the current Father Boila, who became a priest after his release, and Dr. Ion Boila in Cluj, that I will meet tomorrow, we would perform the Holy Liturgy, but not the transformations, the prayers for transformation of bread and wine, but all the other prayers. And the ones who felt they deserved it and hypothetically had received the dispensation from the priest were taking the communion. Other issues of conscience did not exist there. Personally, I did not live by a prayer schedule, as it happens in Orthodox books, evening prayers, baptized prayers, after baptized prayers. There was a constant prayer for us. I had this in mind that as long as I live and everything I do is for the glory of God, with God, and in God, or as you say during liturgy, yours and within you. I lived this constant mood of prayer and meditation, especially during the last years, when it was well rooted in our heads, the fear or the thought that this is where we will die. And when the situation was critical, also from nutritional perspective and physically, people could not handle it any longer, we were convinced that we would never get out. We had to create our internal final plans. Any extra pain caused would only determine us to bring glory and gratitude to God, that we can suffer for a good and fair cause, the cause of God. I'm telling you this, transmitted and inherited by Radu Gir's lyrics.